exciting founders to showcase for you guys today. Knight and Emmie Nostitz are the co-founders of Tivity, a hyper-growth marketplace and digital platform that represents the largest network of top-tier private chefs in the United States. The company's origin story reads like a modern startup lore. In early 2021, while riding a ski gondola between runs in Aspen, Zach, a 12-year-old hospitality and fine dining veteran based in Austin, Texas, took a call from a client looking to source a high-end private chef. Seeing an immediate under-addressed gap in the market, he teamed up with longtime friend Emmie, an award-winning heavy hitter in the advertising world. Emmie brought a flawless creative pedigree to the partnership, having won the first ever Mobile Grand Prix in Cannes for the Google Project Rebrief, and spent years building iconic campaigns at elite agencies like Droga5, Johannes Leonardo for brands like the New York Times and Chase. Coupled with her personal roots in hospitality, her father owned a premier catering enterprise in Dallas. Emmie built Tivity. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah. Nailed it.
Tivity's visual identity, brand strategy, and marketplace from scratch. Together, Zach's deep operational understanding of the restaurant industry, culinary labor shortages combining perfectly with Emmie's brand building genius. Tivity has completely disrupted traditional dining by seamlessly transforming any private residence or corporate space into the hottest table in town, while simultaneously empowering chefs to escape rigid restaurant walls, set their own schedules, and earn a dignified living wage. Zach, Emmie, thanks for coming on. Super excited to chat with you.
Thanks for having us.
What an intro. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I gave a little bit of context to the founder's story, but I always like to hear it from your guys' side. You guys want to tell me a little bit about, maybe a little bit about your backgrounds first, where you grew up, how you got into the advertising industry for Emmie, and Zach, how you kind of got into hospitality. Maybe hear a little bit about your story of how you guys know each other. And then, what was it like when Zach gave you a call, Emmie, to put this idea, and why was it compelling enough for you to jump ship from such an illustrious career in the agency world and break out as a founder?
Whoa.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on. We're really excited. And yeah, it's funny. I feel like I have somewhat left the ad world, but I'm still really close to it. My fiance and I actually met at Droga. So we're still very connected to everyone. And we were just talking about leaving for Cannes. All of my friends are leaving this week. And I built a career. I actually, to be very honest, started at Crispin as an intern and was super lucky there when Crispin was like really hot in Boulder. And I sat in the kitchen and my email was intern Emmie at Crispin. I was like,
let's go.
Amazing. And so I met my future partner there. And from there went to, I met the guys at Goodness Manufacturing that were like an offshoot. They'd done all the Burger King work and started in LA. So I went there and I worked for like nothing and I loved it. And I met some amazing people. And then that kind of springboarded me to New York. And I met with Jan and Leo, and 2 days later, they asked me to come work with them. And it was the hardest but best job and best real big entry into advertising. My first or second brief there was this Google brief that came across our desk. And it was the brief no one wanted. It was a like B2B campaign. And they basically said to us, go impress the shit out of everyone and win a Cannes. And that's what we did. And so we like had this huge uptick and I rode that wave. And Jan and Leo, I really credit them with what they taught me. And they taught me how to be creative. They taught me how to push boundaries. And then I moved around a little bit and then ended up at Droga. And again, that was, we'd already moved, they had already moved to Wall Street, but it was small. I think we were 120 people. And when I left, we were over 400.
Wow.
There was like an insane exponential growth while I was there. But, David really taught us that creative led and that not to be afraid to ask for stuff. And it was an incredible time where clients looked to us for answers. And it was not that we were told what to do. We brought really smart ideas that weren't just creative for creative sake. And so I did a ton of work there. I ended up actually working on and helping launch the first New York Times campaign with a ton of really, really talented people, like Tim Gordon, and David was in the room, and it was amazing to watch that happen. Helped win a big piece of Chase business while I was there, and ended up running the Chase and Sapphire Freedom cards, and I did some toilet paper. We did it all, and I loved it, and I was super happy. And I, judged some stuff at Cannes, and I went for the junior jury, and I popped back and forth. And then I kind of got to the point where I was I just wanted more, and so I was looking for different opportunities. And at that point, my time at Droga had ended, and a lot of stuff was shifting. And I went to an Instagram account that was a travel Instagram account, and our clients were countries, and I was at one point, I think I was helping oversee 140 edits in-house, and it was the Wild West, where we just had people shooting and doing stuff and all that. And it was and it kind of re-engaged me with my love of creativity and how to bootstrap things, and that I didn't need $1 million budget. I could do something with $10,000. And then it was, I kind of started freelancing, and that was around the time that COVID hit. And I was really looking to kind of leave New York, but I was also, it was COVID and I didn't know what to do. And so I spent a big part of that first winter in Aspen skiing. And that was when Zach, who has been a very dear friend of mine, and his wife was my roommate in college. And so we've known each other for, I don't know, 20 some years now, I guess, Zach. And he and I had always been friends, but talked about what he was doing in the restaurant world. And I'd talk about my advertising stuff. And I was on this ski trip in Aspen that they kind of came up, and he started booking a dinner. It was, restaurants weren't readily available. Chefs needed work. And I have a picture of it, him on a phone at the top of the mountain booking it. And that was really where it started. And it was and I didn't really get it. I was and he kept talking to me about it. And it was I have this idea, and it's kind of a matchmaking service, kind of what Hinge or, Tinder could be, but that it's also Airbnb, because we have this thing, or Uber, where you have all the tools, but we're going to put it together. And so I was I don't know. I don't get it. It sounds cool. And I want to keep freelancing, and fine. And and Zach kind of really just kept calling and kept saying, I really want to talk about this thing. So we would have meetings once a month and just talk about it and talk about what we wanted to do. And then, fast forward, I made a logo, and Zach kind of made a kind of business plan. And he was do you want to do this? And I was on a plane to Austin, where he lives and where now I live. And that was 4.5, 5 years ago. And I haven't left. And it was I was supposed to go for 2 weeks just to see if it was something that seemed cool to us. And so the whole principle of Tivity and what we did was, amplifying and representing chefs across the country for private dinners and events. We saw a gap in the market. I think I got really excited about the ability to change culture and how we look at dining and what that looks like. And, for Zach, I can let him speak to it, but he really operationally wanted to change some things in the restaurant business. And I think that has become a proven thing for the two of us, that we really bring different skill sets to the table. And that's what's been exciting, is that I get to still do my advertising dream, building brands, making cool stories, and doing stuff. But now I'm just I'm doing it in the realm of, my own company, which is amazing. So I don't know. I you should test Zach and see if Zach says the same thing about
Well, what happened?
I watch him be that's not how that happened.
Well, she nailed it. And the rest is history. I'm just kidding. No, I think definitely lines with who we are and kind of where we started. My background is growing up, and I liked sports and really was pursuing sports, but at some point you can't play sports forever. And so I found the restaurant as a great place to be flexible, try to figure out what I wanted to do, but then ended up really loving the restaurant industry and the work. I actually lived in San Diego. My first real restaurant job was at Nobu in the gas lamp. I got hired there. I didn't really have any experience to get hired in that way, but I got the job, and really kind of think that was the springboard of my experience as it related to my network of who I met, and chefs and operators and owners and and clients, future clients and friends, and I loved all that, and so I just kept pursuing that and growing in that. But at some point, you're in the restaurant, and that was in ways was incompatible with my own life, with trying to have kids or having kids and managing a relationship and quality of life, and so in line with the pandemic, forced change, that really brought around some natural people just started asking me to book chefs, and I was like, yeah, let's hire some chefs. There's no restaurants open, and they're looking for work. Well, you need work or want someone that can do, you want someone that can cook for you and serve. And we know a lot of people who can do that. And so it really started from those things aligning. And, Emmie's background, as she said, incredible. I definitely am not an expert in any of those things or have any experience in that. But what Emmie didn't say, I think is relevant to California, San Diego. Again, I just keep going back to America's finest city. The first time I tried to collaborate with Emmie on a design in a company was with a skate deck company, and I lived in San Diego, and Emmie helped me create some of the designs, or apply the designs to the skate deck so we could have them printed. And that company didn't actually turn into anything that's still happening today, but it was an amazing experience, and that really solidified my thought that Emmie was this person that I should just keep calling and say, hey, I need help. I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I don't have a brand. I don't have, there's no real identity. There's no name. I don't know. I don't really get on Instagram. That's important. Obviously marketing a business is very relevant. So it was a very natural partnership because we had different skill sets, but we, work well together, knew each other, had a foundation of that. And, I think it really grow, from that, those previous interactions, and then this alignment of what was happening in her life and her career. And it was similar to mine. I was like, I love what I'm doing, but I can't do it in this box over here. I love the box. I love the people in the box, and I go, I'm going to go eat there, but it's really hard to do what I want to do if I'm working inside of a restaurant, which was kind of the trajectory of a restaurant career, unless, you'd shift gears and do something else or some other facet of that industry.
Love it. So tell me a little bit about how you guys decided to go to market. So Zach, obviously, you had this network from working in San Diego, and you're sitting on a ski lift during the pandemic, and restaurants are closed, but people miss the hospitality experience. I did some things like this during COVID, taking clients to Palm Springs and then ordering catering from, the nicest restaurants in Palm Springs to be delivered to the house. But when you deliver $500 of sushi to the house in boxes, it ends up all being, half gross by the time it gets to your house. There's no plating, there's no experience. You can get some good food, but the reasons you go to restaurants for the experience of, the atmosphere that you can, construct around an environment, and the way things are plated and the way things are brought out and coursed, you lose a lot of that magic. So tell me a little bit about, the go-to-market and what were the early days like, kind of, executing around this environment where obviously there was demand for hospitality and fine dining experiences, but the situation of the pandemic, didn't allow these things to happen. So what were some of those early days? What did some of those early, test cases, for a lack of a better word, look like?
I think test case is the best word that you could use because I have like 3 phrases. One is we really focused on the lean model of startup, which is just the philosophy of create a lot of little tests that don't really have a high cost or barrier of entry, and then start to test those. And, you know, whatever feedback you're getting from the test, you can adapt and adjust. So the one thing I didn't agree that you said, Emmy, was that we had a business plan. I didn't think we did, but it's nice if we did. Yes, we had lots of plans, which gives me my other phrase. But so the next thing is, you know, it was happening. We were already in market, or the idea of this was already in market, and that's what I was going to say. There's no new ideas. It's being tested a lot right now, and we're trying to create this movement of this new idea of bringing in a chef to your house. But that's already existed. You just said it. That just didn't. It's not organized. It's very difficult. If you said it, you were trying to produce an event, and like the sushi came, and the quality is poor. There's no one to help. Like, and that's not really what you were looking for. We were attempting to put all those things together, and so those were our test points. And so we were like, well, how can we actually make this a business where we can be, and then, you know, there's some sort of pricing, and there's a system for the chefs, because it's very difficult. And the chefs really, I think, carry a lot of the weight of the business as a single person. You know, like some of them have support, but a lot of these chefs are doing cooking, prepping, sourcing, designing the menu, but they also are answering every email. They're having to market their own Instagram account. They're having to reply to DMs. They're having all of these, like their taxes, their accounting, their own staff, their own inventory of. There's so many things, and so that falls on one chef. In a restaurant, that's not how it works. You know, they have this whole support team, and then there's restaurant groups, and they have accountant. You know, and so we were trying to apply that idea. So my last thing, I'm gonna kick it over to Emmy, is decentralized restaurant, virtual restaurant group. Like every chef is a restaurant. They have a menu, they have a service, there should be a hospitality, there should be amount of amenities that they could provide if needed. But they don't have a lease, and they're not tied to a building, and they don't have the overhead costs of the fees of the utilities. And so that really expands some opportunity for them. And if we can help fill that gap with the business side, they can really expand on the culinary and actually the execution of these requests and the menu and actually the service. And that's a good relationship. We already do that, but it's not in a restaurant.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, to answer your question, like that's what the market was there, right? We had people that wanted this, and we had chefs that wanted to do it. And so, and we didn't really, you know, knowing what I know about advertising and things and stuff, I have worked on amazing campaigns, but I've also worked on campaigns where we spent a lot of money that didn't do a lot of stuff, you know, and that it didn't make a difference. So we didn't want to just go out and spend money to make money. Like it was like very measured. And we really started in Austin, and it was like, we talked to our friends, and we would get a dinner, and we started realizing that one dinner would lead to 2 dinners, and that everyone at that dinner would talk about us. And then it was like, oh, we could, like, you know, and I think really early on, Zach and I really believe that, you know, any business's duty is to be a part of a community and to be engaged. And so part of our marketing strategy was that, like, how do we give dinners away? So we gave a lot of dinners away to charities, to auctions, to things, but it also in turn, like, put our name out in the world, you know, and we got to be, you know, the one of the smartest things Zach has ever said to me was like, people will get it when they get it. And like, they don't understand it until they experience it. So how do we get the quote unquote product in their hand? And, you know, the uphill battle is that we're dealing with a very private thing. Like, you're allowing someone you don't know to come into your house and create a meal and an experience. And that's a very personal thing. So we have to be very careful with that. This was not, we looked at other businesses that were kind of doing what we were doing, and they were having really fast expansion. but like the clients didn't trust them, or it was like something bad happened, or like the chef wasn't up to par, or the chef was like, these clients were horrible and I don't know what's going on and I feel uncomfortable. Like we really took a very measured approach. And we were both living in Austin, or still are, and we took a year and a half of just Austin. Like we didn't go anywhere else. And we were like, let's see what Austin does. And then Austin kind of took us other places. Like our clients in Austin had houses in Colorado, had summer places in the Hamptons. Like they had friends in Chicago that like all of a sudden wanted something. So that was kind of the growth strategy. And now we're at a really interesting point where we are really looking at like more traditional quote unquote marketing dollars, because we've built a brand. We wanted to build a name around what we did. And I think the most rewarding thing for me is that I go to parties and dinners in Austin and someone will be like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I represent chefs. And they're like, oh my God, have you heard of that Tivity thing? And I'm like, yeah, that's me, like, and that means it's working. Like that's so rewarding for Zach and I, because we wanted to build a brand, but we have a lot of brands at play here. Like every chef has their own brand. Tivity has a brand up here, but we have chefs with their own identities and own brands. So we have to represent all of it. And like, that's why you can't go to market with one chef or one menu or one execution. It is all bespoke. It is all unique. And every dinner is a one-off, one-time event. Like we likened it to like what an NFT was. Like we were like
I was gonna see if you said
dinner
that.
NFTs type of thing.
I love it. So tell me about the typical Tivity customer. Is it somebody who's doing a dinner for business reasons and they're trying to do business development and invite out prospects and clients? Is it a guy that wants to really impress his date or girlfriend, or is it a family that just wants to stay in? Tell me a little bit about who the customer is, maybe up like to date, like who is the audience that you guys are serving?
Yeah, it's also a great question. Do you want to go first, Emmy?
I'm like,
I can go.
Do we have D, all of the above?
I know, yeah, everyone, all of them. No, we're really working on honing that in, and that's a big part of the marketing machine, is identifying your target. And the thing that we think about in some ways relates back to the restaurant industry, and it's a special occasion client. So it's the same client that is looking for a restaurant for a special occasion. And so if it's a private client, that could be an anniversary, it's a birthday, it's a special occasion, it's someone trying to impress or host, it's the corporate meeting that's maybe not necessarily the corporate event, because we do have that client as well. And we actually learned that from the private client, we get the corporate client, and we get introduced to corporate production and opportunities to work with their production team and their events team if it's a large company, and also the just small businesses that are having a Christmas party that would maybe go to a restaurant or go to Top Golf and blow it up. Like they might have a private dinner at the owner's house and have a special menu, and like have a meeting or a recognition of the year. And those are the two groups that are really like a one-off event client. But we also have a group of clients who are ordering on a weekly basis that are very focused on health, diet, ingredients, quality of time as well. It's usually a combination of those. That can be anywhere from one individual that is just a single male or female to a household of a large household with couple and children. And then last, we've identified this last client, and we this isn't as common for us, but we've found, because of the work that Emmy and we've done with our brand and the recognition, people are coming to us for full-time placement.
Interesting. So like private chef models.
Well, yeah.
Private chef and business restaurant. We've placed 2 chefs in restaurants.
Interesting.
Because it's complementary, and we're we hope to have synergy always. I mean, everybody works together. It's a very tight knit community, and we're not positioning ourselves in this moment to be a full-time opportunity, like your full-time income. But if we get there, that's ultimate. But we share with the restaurants, and so and clients don't want to book a dinner at their house every night either. So we're sharing in the labor pool, the chef pool, giving chefs an opportunity to do something creative when maybe they don't get to do that every time in their own restaurant.
And I think just one other way to kind of look at our client base is to look at our chefs. Like we've always really focused and we've always said that chefs are at the center of our business. And it's when we meet chefs, I mean, we now have a network of like, I don't know, over 1,000 really strong chefs across the country that we feel really that we're like, yeah, we can. And one of the first questions we ask them is, what do you like to do? Like, what's your favorite menu? Who do you like to cook for? What are you comfortable with? And then that dictates the clients too. So we have some chefs that are like, listen, I really like 4 to 6 people. Like I want to tell a story. I want it to be a 6-course dinner. That's that client. Right. And then we have chefs that are like, I have a whole team that I've built, and I love, a wedding or a banquet or a big event for 100 people. Like that's that client. Or, we have some chefs that are like, I just went back to school and did, studied all these health things, and I'm really into like food, like food as a cure and stuff. And so those are those weekly chef people, so that's, I think, the other way to look at like who our clients are is it's so much dictated by the chefs that we have and who come to us. And we have an incredible outpouring of chefs. I mean, it was a double-edged sword of us marketing. Like we were marketing in the beginning to clients to book things, but we were marketing to chefs too, because it's a really big step for them. Like they're like, can we trust you? Are you going to steal our clients? Like, do we want to work with you? So we had to like heavy lift on both sides to convince both sides that like we were going to sit in the middle and help both, and that we were successful when both sides were successful. It wasn't about us taking the lion's share of it or making you feel like it was lucky that you were part of this elite group of Tivity. Like, no, we're kind of all in it together. So I think that's what's been interesting is that we have had opportunities like putting chefs at restaurants or, bigger corporate events because of the chefs we have, but then those clients that introduce us to things. So it's kind of this big web of how our client roster, I would say, has grown.
That's interesting. Emmie, having spent some time in the hospitality social media space, running a travel Instagram, I imagine that gave you, a front row seat into how important culinary is to the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
We don't travel to sit on an airplane, and we don't travel really to, sit in a hotel room. We travel to do things and eat things.
Yeah.
How much did you lean into the idea that culinary is a huge category, especially on Instagram and YouTube and, chef tutorials and making food and all that stuff?
It's a huge piece.
Were you finding chefs that had social media followings and could do collaboration posts with you, help you grow your own social? And, how much did collaborations on social become part of how you guys market it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big piece of it. And the food thing is such a big trend, even still now, like taking pictures of your meal and what you ate. The bear and but I think I remember really early on, I approached this like I would have approached any kind of normal quote unquote client. And I was like, oh, we have to have a shoot. And like, we need an asset library of like food and things. And then I kind of like looked around and I was like, we have the largest asset library and content that any brand. We're so lucky. Like I have the ability at any moment of any day to reach out to a chef and say, what do you have? What can I use? What do you want to talk about? What menus do you have? Like I have a never ending content thing. And I think the biggest job I have to do is look at it and filter it and allow each chef to have their own voice in it. But does it fit within our larger brand? And, our larger brand being that we demand a like high level of expertise of, you know, hospitality, that it's going to be a flawless event, that you're gonna feel really special. You're gonna get the value for what you're paying for. But like, and I quite frankly struggled with that. I was like, how do you take all this stuff that's out there and then also make it ours? And something we started doing really early on was collaborations, and really like co-posting and doing things together that wasn't dictated by us, but that we were saying to chefs, like, document the dinner you did, and like, let's just tag us and do a post and we'll collaborate together. And it allowed them to get excited about stuff, because they want more exposure. We have a platform to be an exposure to them as well. So I think it's kind of taking a lot of the trends that are out there, but also just like not taking everything so seriously. Like, there's a cadence to what we do. There's there's reasoning and thought, and there's a plan. But at the same time, like, if all of a sudden we get an image of this great dinner that happened last night in, Dallas, like, we're going to post it. Like, that's awesome. And maybe it's not in the, like, what we were supposed to post or whatever. And I think that's part of it, is that we're open to the stories that chefs are willing to share with us and tell us. And I think the only thing that is somewhat difficult is because dinners are such a private thing in someone's home. Like, we are very cognizant of that. You should never really know where an event was unless specifically agreed upon by the client. Like, we don't talk about necessarily the larger brands that we do big events for. Like, that's not our focus. Is like what the chef did, what was on a plate, and how to tell that story and what that looked like. But yeah, I'm like so lucky that I have like the biggest asset library I've ever had. And I like don't know it. I've never had that. Like, I've always had to pay for that or set that up. It's like, I just have it. And it's an amazing thing to play with. And now with how you can like, everyone's like, oh, you can use AI and create things and do stuff. And I'm like, I have it all. Like, I have I got it all right here. Now there aren't enough hours in the day to put it all together. It's my biggest thing.
Yeah, totally. It's content. When you have that kind of content, it becomes a curation issue versus a creation issue.
And it's such an amazing kind of, I don't know, but it's not, problem's not the right word, but it's like an amazing thing to have.
Challenge.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good problem.
A huge trend that's popped up in culinary is pop-ups. The idea that, a lot of restaurateurs or chefs, rather than opening up, their own restaurant, they might do a pop-up somewhere in an unconventional space that isn't normally, a kitchen. I work with a hospitality brand called Aspen. We recently did a tuna carving ceremony in a Airbnb in the Melrose district. Are you guys leaning into this trend of pop-ups so you can kind of give your chefs a space to, kind of work in the real world, and then maybe invite, people to a bigger event, either as a promotional opportunity or even selling tickets? There's a direct consumer play that isn't, just for one group, it's one to many. Are you using the trend of pop-ups as, something to potentially explore or lean into?
Definitely. We found out right away, it's, if you want to drum up some activity and create an event, you don't have to have an inquiry, or a client doesn't have to ping you to do something awesome. And, pop-ups are a great low barrier to entry way for a chef to serve a menu. And so we focus on, is it a ticketed event, or how are we promoting it? It's just a slightly different focus. And Emmie and I have, pop-up is kind of a broad spectrum. I mean, I think of a pop-up as pop-up at a bar with a flat top and some equipment and a table, and people are just there and they would eat that, whatever it is that's delicious. But we've also gone so far as to do some very curated also pop-ups, but a completely immersive dinner experience that's a pop-up, but it's the ticket price is $500, more like the tuna ceremony cutting ceremony situation.
It's
where
a high-end culinary experience,
but totally immersive dining experience. And Emmie, could talk about it a little bit too. But that's also a pop-up, and so absolutely, and it's an opportunity for the chef. It's usually in collaboration with another business that gets some gleans some opportunity from that as well for exposure. So we're all for it as a community engagement and as a trend.
And I would argue on some levels, and I mean, take it with a grain of salt, I would argue that every dinner we do in a way is a pop-up, right? Like, because every night is a unique thing. Spoke to the client, whether it's ticketed or not, it's being paid for by someone, right? And it's in a space that's not a restaurant. And we really look at our chefs as restaurants themselves. Like, we've had very serious conversations with different PR people and different big restaurant groups that are very involved at like James Beard and the Michelin Guide and things like that. And we're like, the Michelin gave a star I think 2 years ago in Mexico City to a taqueria that was not really a restaurant. It was like a kind of corner in a market, right? But they deemed that an incredible experience, and Michelin wanted to do that. And we've started having discussions with them of like, what deems that as like the great experience? And if our chefs are that, like, every night is a new restaurant pop-up experience through the lens of that chef. So I kind of look at it as like, yeah, we absolutely lean into the pop-up thing as like from a ticketed perspective of like what everyone does, but I think we're broadening what that looks like. And I think it's a bigger cultural discussion of like, you look at the history of kind of this decision tree of eating. Like, it started with you just ate at home and you like ate what you had, and then everyone got sick of that, so there was like one restaurant in town, and you didn't know like who owned it or whatever. You didn't care. It was like you just got out. And then it was like fast forward, and all of a sudden you went somewhere because they had a certain cuisine or you knew the chef. And then fast forward, it was like all of a sudden there was that trend that every kitchen, it was open. Like, all of a sudden you saw into the kitchen, you saw the chef. And so then all of a sudden that was the rise of the celebrity chef. And it was like the chef became the show. And it was so much about like, did you get into so-and-so's restaurant? And then there was so little room at the top that I think that's where the pop-up and the food truck and that whole thing came to be, because not everyone could afford the space or the backing to do some high-level restaurants. And I think that's where pop-ups came. And to us, we are kind of the next iteration of that, where it's like, now you don't even need an event space or a special rented space. You can do it in your own home. It's something that already exists. So I see it as like you now have 4 choices when to dine. You can cook at home, you can go out, you can order in, which didn't exist 10 years ago. I mean, it was like pizza and Chinese food. Now you can order anything. And now you can have the restaurant or the chef come to you. And so that's kind of the trajectory that we're on, of like redefining how these things work. And that as Zach said before, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're literally just taking stuff and making it like look at it a little bit of a different way. Like, you need to eat dinner tonight. Like, do you want to cook? No. Do you want to go out? No. Like, okay, so let's have a chef come to the house, because I don't want sushi delivered in boxes. I want an omakase chef. Like, I had a dinner party the other night, and the chef brought his like sushi case and put it like in the middle of my kitchen and just started making rolls in my kitchen for everyone. It was the best time I've ever had. Like, and that's easy and possible. So, and is that a pop-up? I kind of think it is a little bit. It was for my friends, but it was, it was a one night only thing.
I love it. So talk about the types of chefs that the platform is for. So it sounds like if I'm a, hot Michelin chef in Austin that recently, Texas recently got the Michelin Guide last year. So it's probably not, the celebrity chef that has his own shingle or is part of a restaurant group or owns his own restaurant group. But are you recruiting kind of, the next line in succession, the sous chef, the guys that work in some of these amazing restaurants, but maybe aren't the household names that, everybody knows, and you're kind of giving them because they're still part of the culinary experience, but they might not be the face of the brand. Now you're giving them a chance to branch out because, like you said, there's only so many spots and so much access to capital and so much real estate at the top of the food chain, for lack of a better word. Are you giving, basically giving that next layer of chefs that kind of support the industry and ladder up to those bigger household names? Is that kind of who the platform is for?
I think the platform is for a chef that's qualified in a few ways that is related to their experience, but also related to what they're doing and what they're looking for, because we do work with those chefs in it, that you mentioned, but they're not for everybody. So we, I think, work with 3 tiers of chefs that we could, classify. One, we do work with the celebrity chefs if the client is looking for that type of experience. We do ask them as part of the process, just, does the notoriety of the chef matter to you as we're trying to match? And then, right below that, we have a scale of chefs who are either currently working in a restaurant as an executive chef, sous chef, chef de partie, pastry chef, maybe even a general manager that was a chef but now is a general manager. And we know we have a relationship with them through our process, and they are available only on Monday and Thursday, and we sometimes work with them. And then our last chef is a full-time private chef, entrepreneurial person who's decided to go outside of the restaurant completely, but has spent time in the restaurant almost always, because that's a lot of time where you learn. Although there are people and chefs that we work with who have learned through culinary school and manage their business and their culinary process very well. And so it's almost like an officer going through an officer program versus going through basic training in a military analogy. It's very similar. So the chef tiers are a full-time private chef, sole proprietor, LLC business, or a chef who's straddling both full-time job and extra income. And then the celebrity chef, which might only do this exclusively when the opportunity is right, but also have stake in their own restaurant or their own brands. Or, it's there's a reason that we don't have our chefs on our website as like browsable in that manner, because it's hard to lump all of them in and match a client with our chef in that manner. We really like to see where the client is first, and then we might be working with the chef for the first time, but we have a relationship with that chef from Emmy's work in New York with JP or Chase or JP Morgan or Coca-Cola, that and I might have a relationship with a chef from Nobu or a restaurant that I've consulted with or worked with, that we reach out to and say, hey, we have this opportunity and you have the resources and we know you have the skills. Are you interested in doing an event together? And let's pop up. Let's pop up in where this client wants the dinner, because it's usually like that, where there's not a big pool of chefs around, a vacation spot, although there are a lot of great chefs in these areas as well. But those are really the 3 tiers of chefs that we work with, and they're all have their own experience in that little scheme of the group.
Emmy, you mentioned something that's super important, especially with double-sided platforms, but when you're dealing with your home and when you're dealing with something as intimate as, eating, the trust factor and building a brand and a user experience that people can trust. We've all had experiences checking into Airbnbs that maybe didn't live up to the photographs. I've gone so far as to book something, in Europe on booking.com and show up to the location and there's nobody with keys. And it's like, then at like 11:30 at night, you're figuring out another hotel, even, outright scams. Talk about how do you build trust on both sides? How do you build trust in the chef community and how do you build trust with clients And how is that a marketing challenge to solve?
Yeah, I mean, it's a marketing challenge, but I think it's just a human connection challenge. Like we, and I go back to like we've been very intentional in how we've grown, and we've been very careful to not grow too quickly. And it was, there are mornings that I wake up and Zach wakes up and we're like, man, we wish we were like bigger and faster and stronger. But then at the same time, like, we wouldn't be where we are now. Like, we wouldn't have that trust. And trust is gained. It's not, and it's earned over time. And you look at the great brands that are out there, someone on the outside probably was like, oh, that brand's always existed. No, it took years to like equate, whatever, Nike with sport. That's not just that trust of like the excellence of sports took a while to build. And I think that's what we're trying to do as well. And when it relates to chefs, it's a lot of like, we are accessible to our chefs. Like they have our phone numbers. They know how to reach us. They also know that like we work with clients that have paid a deposit, want this experience. We always like, we kind of always ask for like images of the kitchen and things like that. And that's also to like help our chef know what they're walking into. But it's about, that we spend the time, and Zach and I have an amazing like operations team and people that do a lot of that legwork. And that, it's a client is going to text at 4:50 and be like, oh my God, I'm not home. I totally forgot I had to drop my kid off at school. Like the back door's open, but like, can you do something? Like there's always something that comes up. Or my friend's husband decided to come to dinner and there's another plate that's needed. Like that's part of the accessibility that we have. We're not an answering service. We're not an automated service. Like we are a hands-on, human chef service. So to me, that's where trust comes from, is just that we kind of do it every day and that we answer the questions. Marketing wise, yeah, it's hard to do that. I think it's like, because the last thing I want to do is like fly a banner that's like, trust us, we're amazing. That seems dumb. But, I think it's, if our chefs are happy and our clients are happy, that's where that, that word of mouth comes in. Like, it's then other chefs come to us and say, I heard you worked with my friend and they were really happy. Or clients are like, I went to this dinner and it was amazing. I want that, so that's kind of how we right now, like really focus on trust. Is like, it's like, we just have to kind of prove it all the time in every touch point that we have.
The double-sided marketplace, is an interesting innovation that's been around for quite a while now. But you kind of are starting to see like the fractionalization where there are, I use a platform called PeerSpace to rent podcast studios around the world in order to do these podcasts live, versus having to go and find one and rent one on my own. I was using a service last summer called, I think it was called like Poolsy or something like that, where you could literally rent people's pools or pickleball courts. It's like there's really is becoming kind of like this hyper specialization of like creating double-sided marketplaces for deeper, like you could theoretically go rent an Airbnb and then like find a chef on Instagram or something like that. But then that becomes, it just, I think, the whole like Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, these platforms that allow you to click a button and everything gets done for you through technology, whether it's as seamless as it actually seems in the back end, has become kind of part of the user experience mentality. People expect that they can go onto technology, click a button, and then everything happens magically for them. I wonder how much are you seeing that as a trend? And is that the opportunity, to continue on in a world that maybe post-pandemic, a lot of people are still going back to restaurants, but, as much as I'm going to the gym, I still have a Peloton at home and I like to work out at home sometimes.
Yeah.
Flexibility, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Zach, you can literally, this is like, we just got off the phone about this. Like, it's, where do we leverage technology to help us. We are a human company and always will be, because a chef in your home is a human experience. But there are definite touch points and moments where technology, AI, automation, all of this can, help us better serve our clients and our chefs. And I think that's where the opportunity lies, of like, how do we use technology as a tool rather than as an answer or as a solve. We believe that, we want, at the end of the day, it to be an experience that people feel really comfortable with. And I think that's evolving. Like, it's really, I mean, I called my doctor the other day and got an answering service, and it said, this is an AI agent. And I had a full conversation about my medical history, and I felt very safe. And I was like, I feel fine and it's cool. And they were like, what's your birthday? And, oh, that's cool. Like, what, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do you need this thing? And I oddly was like very okay with it. And so we will move into, like, as this stuff progresses, we will move into it. And I think that's the thing that Zach and I are also trying to get ahead of and also look at, is like, there's so much cool stuff coming from a technology standpoint. What do we want to leverage, and like, what do we want to use, and how do we like put it into our systems? But really, it all has to be in service of the evening or the event or the meal. Like, it can't be because it just is like a shiny object.
A big part of technology is disrupting traditional business models and ways of working. During the pandemic, I put my kids in a homeschool co-op that, got teachers that were, either furloughed or not able teaching Zoom classes, and were just tired of the experience of not being able to be with their students. And we were able to recruit the best teachers from the best private schools around the country, not only because they wanted to be back in schools with their students in a normal environment, but going direct to consumer, having parents pay the teachers, and then the co-ops taking a small administrative fee versus being a salaried employee, actually created a better business model for those teachers to make more money. Zach, you talk a lot about, liberating the back of the house, spending over a decade in the trenches, the culinary industry being notorious for these grueling 80-hour weeks, mental health burnout, low margins, spending a lot of time kind of, earning your way to the top of the food chain, no pun intended. How do you rethink about this business model to either be a supplement or even a replacement for the traditional way in which, consumers interact with food and hospitality and restaurants, but as a way that chefs can actually earn more money or supplement their income, or more importantly, supplement their lifestyle and create a lifestyle that's more conducive to, the way that they might want to live?
Yeah, I mean, chefs are artists, and artists are creative, and they need creative outlets. They need materials. They need paints and palettes and brushes and things to apply them to. And so our mission statement is to help chefs earn extra income and be creative. And from that, we in the marketplace, I think are really an agent for the chef. Will let us handle the business and the communication, and you can focus on the creative. And with the client, it's always about the amount of time that it takes to host and what that does, that it takes you away from the party. And people are more I think mindful now than ever of, they want to be present at their party, and they don't want to have to clean it up. Like, so a big tipping point is that you have this eager group of people that want to be creative and look for opportunities, and they are great cleaners. Like, chefs have to clean the kitchen every night, and so they'll clean your kitchen as part of this process. And we set that up and make sure that the expectations are managed, and that's really from both sides. If we believe if we can manage the expectations of the client and the chef as they relate to this one-time event that will never happen again, in the same way, then, you know, we've had success, the chefs had success, and the client will definitely rebook with us.
Love it. Emmie, I was wondering, you know, I talked to another agency that was a big in kind of food styling and food shoots in Portland during the pandemic. And they actually, because they, you know, because there weren't restaurants, they were able to get these chefs to come in and do food shows and food content and pop-up events. I wonder if you've thought at all from, you know, your time in the agency world, have you thought about loaning your chefs out for kind of commercial work and, you know, food styling on set and kind of the way that the culinary chef ecosystem intersects with the traditional advertising world as well? Or is that maybe too far off scope?
No, I mean, I think, listen, anything's possible, right? I think the best and coolest stuff that we've done has come to us through kind of our chef's desires or a client's desire to do something. It is very rare that Zach and I sit in a room, one, because we're really busy just, you know, running a lot of the business itself, but being like, oh, we want to do this one-off thing, or this is cool. Like, sure, there's stuff like, you know, I have forever, I have a huge love of interior design. I have some very close friends that are very talented and, you know, famous designers. I would love to create a coffee table book around kitchens and use our chefs and create, like, that has been like a bucket list thing that I would love to do. And I believe you put that stuff out in the world and it'll come back. But at the same time, really, like, the coolest stuff, to your point of like you know, whether putting chefs in commercials and things and stuff, like, that's the kind of stuff that we found really came to us. And like, good examples of that is like, you know, there's great, you know, like Made In is in Austin. Like, we haven't done anything with them, but like, they have an incredible network of chefs that do that kind of stuff. That's a lot of chefs that we also work with, like, but that's not necessarily our day to day. And we find ourselves in those situations or doing those things when we need to represent a chef. And again, it's back to what Zach said. It's like, we are in that sense, we are like a CAA model of, you know, we are an agent. Like, we get you the movie, we get you the contract, we get you the thing or whatever, you know, like, and we've had those discussions, like big dreams of like where we want to go. And it's like, I'd love to like have chefs someday that get to the point where it's like, they do have a book deal. And so they're coming to us and they're like, how do we represent this thing? And what do we do? And like, we can represent chefs on a bigger level across their multidisciplinary things. I would say right now we really are focused on dinners, but like, yeah, I would love that if it grows and like all of a sudden we're representing chefs for them as a brand and as a whole. And it's like, they walk into the world and it's like, who are they, you know, what events are they going to? And what are they? And like, we're a part of that because we are their trusted partner and like sounding board. Like, so much of what we do with, and I give Zach this credit, like half of Zach's day is talking to chefs about like what's going on in their world. And even like with their kids or like how they need to order. Like, that's a huge piece of our day is, or at least Zach's, you know, and then my job is to tell that story. And however a chef comes to me and says, you know, these are the things I'm thinking about, this is how I want to present myself, that's then my job to start looking at opportunities to do that.
Love it. All right. Well, I've kept you guys for an hour and super fascinating. I've only made it through half of my questions, so maybe we'll have to do this again sometime.
We'd love to.
Part two.
Yeah, I love it. So, you know, if folks want to, you know, follow you guys and, you know, stay up to date with, as you guys are building this brand out loud, where would you like to send people to connect with both of you directly and or learn more about Tivity?
Feel free to reach out to us directly. My email, we can accept emails at info@thetivity.com, and Emmie can talk about our social channels if you want to connect with us there.
Yeah, we, you know, we're on Instagram, we're _Tivity. You can link to our website, which is thetivity.com. You can book directly through our website, and an inquiry, it comes to us and we can get that going. And
if you're a chef, you can create a online account. It's free. It's, you know, just part of the onboarding process that gets us to know who you are as a chef, and then we can initiate our vetting process from there. So if it's a chef, they can set up an account just on our website as well.
And then, and the last big kind of thing that way to connect with us or book is it's new and we're still working out, how it really works, but talking about like breaking the mold and changing some things. We are on Open Table, so you can book your house.
Wow.
Which is
That
really,
is so
really,
cool.
really cool. And it's about that shift, it's like, yeah, you book a restaurant. Well, you have 6 seats in your dining room. Why can't you book those 6 seats? Like if you're looking for 6 seats at 7:00, like let's book your house and the chef can come. So Open Table is relatively new to us, but it is accessible throughout the country. You just kind of can click it and pick a time and we'll kind of take it from there. We do have like the ability to book certain like types of dinner. So you could book a sushi dinner or, a farm to table dinner, but you can also kind of just choose your own adventure. And then we'll get on the phone with you and figure it out and walk you through the steps. So the Open Table thing is new, but really exciting for us because I think it's going to change the way people think about restaurants and booking things, for a Friday night out.
Yeah, 100%. Well, congratulations on that partnership. I used Open Table twice last week to book restaurants. Obviously, obviously dialing into the user experience, whether it's Yelp or Open Table, kind of the ways that people are already thinking about how they interact with food in restaurants is a huge win for you guys. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Well, awesome. Well, for everybody who's watching this for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe if you enjoyed the conversation I had with Zach and Emmie today. If you're listening to the show, an honest review on whatever podcast platform you might be listening on is a great way to support the show. So go ahead and do that. And last but not least, if there's maybe someone out in the hospitality world or restaurants or the food ecosystem that this could be an interesting partnership, or maybe a chef that that is looking to figure out how to supplement their income or work in a different way or tap into the freelance economy, or maybe just somebody who you think would benefit from the conversation I had with Zach and Emmie today, don't forget to share the show. And with that, I will wish you guys a great day. Thanks for coming on.